Mark Daniels has got an article that everyone is talking about. And when it broke, everyone was going nuts here at the station. It was all the conversation on the air yesterday. Of course, it came out after we got off the air. He covers the Patriots for MassLive.com. He joins us on the Volkswagen Dealers Expert Hotline. The article is Inside the Fall of Mac Jones, once promising QB unraveled. Mark Daniels, hello, sir.
Hello. Good morning.
Good morning. All right, so I guess it's all over like social media. They're like news. The Patriots aren't picking up Mac Jones's option, but that's a future scenario, correct?
Correct. Yeah. I believe I think the deadline's May for that.
Okay, so they would have to make the decision in May, and you are under the you're under the assumption that they won't pick that option up.
Yep. I was told by a source that they do not plan on picking that up. I believe the price will be somewhere around $23 million. The NFL hasn't even come out with a set price, but last year it would have been $23 million of guaranteed money.
All right, so this is, a legitimate thing, and obviously you're breaking it this morning, and now people are reacting to it. I don't know that it's all that surprising. What's surprising is that both of these things that I think no one thought would happen, that Belichick would be leaving not under his own terms, and also that you wouldn't be picking up the fifth-year option on the quarterback that you drafted in the first round a few years ago and played well enough in that first year. It was just kind of assumed at that point. It's like, okay, well, now we got somebody here. You play for a few years. And really the conversation, Mark, was more about will they extend him before they get to that fifth-year option and sign him to a longer-term deal? The surprise comes in, hindsight looking back. It's like, oh, my God, not only is he not going to be here beyond his rookie deal, they're not even going to exercise that fifth-year option, which is still pretty reasonable money for somebody that you assumed was going to be your starting quarterback for a while.
And I think initially going into it, you looked at it as, all right, we'll have Mac Jones for 5 years, and that'll be enough time to evaluate whether or not we want to give him a massive contract extension. Now, Mac Jones will head into 2024, and the last year of his rookie contract will hit free agency next year. But I think the big question now is he even in Foxborough this summer or this fall? I think there's a growing assumption inside the building that he'll be traded. I think the one thing about that is like, all right, we don't even know who the OC is, who the coaching staff is, or who is running the front office. So it's just an assumption at this point. I think what also factors into it is what would another team trade for Mac Jones? And what type of draft asset could you acquire? Because I don't think the Patriots would just give him away for free. Like, I think there is some value to having, ample quarterback depth. As we saw this past season, when over a dozen teams use backup quarterbacks. So if it's just a seventh round pick, I think there's a chance Mac Jones is back. But if I had to guess, honestly, I think he's somewhere else. And I think another team would find value in just having an experienced backup quarterback and sort of a reclamation project.
All right. So I'm probably the only one because of a Jets fan to find this interesting. And I know just how garbagey the organization is. But there's a revelation that you have in there. Maybe I'm the only one who thinks it's a revelation. But how poorly Mac Jones thought he was traded in opposition to how the Jets traded Zach Wilson. Treated Zach Wilson.
Yeah, wild, right? I'd say, honestly, I started working on this project for like the end of October, and I'd get these little nuggets, and I'd be like, oh, that'd be really interesting if I just ran with it now. And I really sort of gambled and held everything to have this big overall story. But that was by far one of the most shocking things, that Mac Jones didn't find out he was going to be inactive until 90 minutes before the Patriots game against the Jets. And he was so upset with the lack of communication that he vented to a member of the Jets organization, of the Jets staff, that just to basically say, I really appreciate how you guys have handled Zach Wilson. And what he meant by that, from what I was told, was that at the time, Diana Rossini reported the Jets were up front with Zach Wilson and said, hey, this isn't working out. We're going to trade you in the offseason. And that happened after he was benched. So like compare and contrast that to Mac, when like at this point, from what I was told, Bill Belichick wasn't talking to him. He was telling others in the locker room that, no one talks to me. Felt like he was on an island. And then he's inactive and no one told him that he'd be the emergency third quarterback. So Yeah, I'm up there with you because when have the Jets done anything better than the Patriots? So
No.
someone from the Patriots organization, a quarterback, would be like, "Oh, I appreciate how you guys did this." In contrast to the Patriots, yeah, I was shocked when I was told that.
Yeah, I mean, if you were to put that in an article anytime over, like, take a year away, but like over a course of like 25 years, people would have been like pitchforks after you, pitchforks and torches after you, just at the
Right.
very idea of it. And the Jets is like are a terrible organization. All right, but Mac Jones venting his frustrations as any of us would, or certainly I would be doing the exact same thing. Um, do you think that Belichick's treatment of him is fair? Was fair because Mac Jones, we hear that he was upset that Mac Jones was reaching out to other coaches when Patricia was the offensive coordinator because he was frustrated. The story, the anecdote you have about him talking about to the Jets about how they handled Zach Wilson. That's another issue of him complaining. Again, I would complain too. I'm a big complainer, though. Do you think that Mac Jones is someone with that has like a problem with that? That's a problem, or do you think he was treated unfairly and and behaved in a way that most of us would behave?
I think there's you could split the blame pie up between both of them. I do think in a sense he was treated unfairly. Like the downfall for him and Bill Belichick started in 2022 with Matt Patricia. From what we were told, when Bill was like, all right, we're going to change this offense to this West Coast offense. And by the way, it's Matt Patricia who's running it. We were told that Mac was a bit resistant to that change. And he's a big, like, why guy. Like when coaches tell him to do something, he wants to know why. And with Bill Belichick, he's so old school. He'd rather a yes sir, no sir type player. And that's who Bailey Zappi is, by the way. Bailey Zappi is a very big yes sir, no sir, I'll do it how you say, sir. Where Mac is like, okay, you want me to do this differently than last year when I had success. Why? Why should we do it? And really, that was the start of the downfall. And so this past year, when Mac started to freelance outside of what Bill O'Brien was telling him, I think in the end, Bill Belichick viewed him as not coachable, which is why he stopped speaking to him. I would say it was not treating a young quarterback fairly, but Mac Jones definitely deserves some blame because he did show resistance and he did handle certain things the wrong way.
Okay, so it comes out that he's a complainer, and a lot of your article, and you talk to so many people, but a lot of your article is the offensive line sucked, the receivers weren't running the right routes. Were you hearing? Is this more of Mac Jones or Mac Jones's people? I'm not asking you to relate your sources, but is this just more of an instance of Mac Jones complaining and kind of passing the buck, or were people on his side? Was it more like people were on his side?
It was more players with what they were telling me. Over the last 3 months, me, Karen, and Chris we really hit the player part hard with like, all right, so I can understand Mac Jones people saying like, all right, receivers dropped some of his best balls. All right, I get that, but let me talk to players in the locker room who are not Mac Jones, who are not the quarterbacks, who are not, team Mac Jones. I need to talk to people who are team Zappy, who are team, Bill Belichick about this. And the overall thing I kept getting told over and over, and over again was like, hey, this isn't all on Mac. This isn't all on Mac. I'm like, all right, if this isn't all on Mac, then who's it on? And then you talk to, veteran offensive linemen, and it's, oh, well, this is going on. You talk to like pass catchers, oh, this is going on. So I'm like, all right, by the end of it, I'm like, I get that me putting or even writing, like, all right, the Patriots offensive line sucked and the Patriots pass catchers weren't doing this. It's going to sound like an excuse for Mac Jones, but honestly, that stuff came from players inside the locker room, even defensive players who were telling me that like the Patriots offense wasn't on the same page in practice, and that didn't stop when Bailey Zappi took over. So I'm like, all right, at the end, there were just widespread failures, all over. And Mac Jones is a part of that. We all saw like the horrible passes he was throwing. He was a part of the problem, but he wasn't the only problem.
Yeah, and it's good that you say that because people, obviously, you probably heard it, were pontificating that, oh, this is all coming from Mac Jones because it sounds like it's coming from Mac Jones. So it's good to hear that it's coming from other players.
I'm wondering, Mark, do you think that he could be a starter anywhere in the league ever again? You've said in your article and you've said with us that he could be a capable NFL backup and it never hurts to have depth at the position, but he was a Pro Bowler his rookie year, and it seems like he's been broken by this experience.
Yeah, he's definitely been broken by this experience, and I think the interesting thing I heard too was that he openly talked in the locker room about like Geno Smith's path and how that might happen. That might be his. Like he has to be a backup. So I think capable backup, 100%. Capable starter. Yeah, I don't. It's hard. I think it's hard when you broke for 2 seasons and you bottomed out and you get demoted to the third string. I think at the end of the day, Mac Jones is going to be a capable backup. It wouldn't shock me if he like comes out in like I don't know how many years and sorry how many years and has some success because he did it in 2021. But it's going to take the right situation. I think to like a team like the Rams would Sean McVay trade for Mac Jones and let him back up Matthew Stafford and give him a chance to replace Matthew Stafford. That would be a great situation because it's an offensive minded coach with an offensive heavy roster. Like it'd have to be a perfect situation. So I guess it's not a great answer to say maybe. I wouldn't surprise me if Mac Jones has success, but I don't see it coming right now.
Well, he couldn't make it work with Goff. And if you can't make it work with Goff and you get rid of Goff, I mean, how are you going to make it work with anyone?
Hey, Mark, you mentioned in the article yesterday, and again this morning, finding out that according to your source, they're not going to pick up his option, and it opens up the doors to where he could go and who he could play for. Looking back on the season, and in your article yesterday, you mentioned a couple of plays and a couple of throws he made against the Cowboys. And Greg Olson was quick to point out, it's like, you can't do that. You can't throw across your body. You can't roll right and throw left. And he got away with it the first time, but not the second time. And then the capper was that throw, the interception on the goal line in Germany, which was just flat out one of the worst passes I've ever seen thrown by an NFL starting quarterback. In your article, though, you talk about something that I had never heard before. I hadn't read before. It was news to me that he was dealing with an injury at that time. So what did you hear about that, and who else on the team knew what he was going through, according to your reporting yesterday in the story about what made Mac Jones throw that horrific interception in Germany?
Yeah, it's a great question. So honestly, what tipped me off about this was just me watching the game in the stands through my binoculars. I saw Mac run off the field after his interception and his arm was slumped down. And I was like, that's strange. It looks like he's hurt. And then after the game, he was in the x-ray room. And the answer we got was that he had like a bruise on his back. And for me, it didn't line up. So I really chased that down, honestly, for months, trying to find out what was really going on with Mac in Germany. Was like, did I not see what I thought I saw? And then it came out that no, on the drive where he threw the pick, he was hit on a play that essentially he hurt his throwing arm. He hurt his throwing shoulder. He suffered a stinger. It was this play where Connor McDermott also got hurt. He suffered a concussion. So in that drive, from what I was told, when you get a stinger in your arm, it's a feeling of like pins and needles. So on maybe his worst throw of the season, Mac has a stinger in his throwing shoulder. The guy who replaces Connor McDermott, Vadarian Lowe sort of gets beat, and it's just a recipe for disaster, right? Because at this point, Mac isn't reacting positively to pressure. He throws off his back foot, and on top of that, he's dealing with an injury in his arm. And now it's the Patriots. I get it. They're not going to blame anything on injuries. But, the source told me that, yeah, Mac Jones had a stinger, and that's why he ran off the sideline with his arm slumped down. So yeah, who knew it is really the great question, because we, definitely asked around, and, as we put in the story, one player who was on the field said, he was like, oh yeah, I didn't know that. I'm like, all right, well, certain people were certainly dialed in. Like, I know it wasn't a secret for everyone. Like, there's zero chance the team's trainers, the medical staff didn't know about that. But the confusion about that, from what I was told, was that Mac thought he was going back in. It's sort of in line with like the lack of communication between him, Bill Belichick, and the coaching staff. Like, he walked up, he fist bumped all his offensive linemen, and he thought he was going back into the game, and no, they replaced him with Bailey Zappi. So yeah, Mac Jones, stinger in his throwing shoulder. I guess it leads to one of his worst picks, but as he told someone in the locker room, in hindsight, that was obviously, on him. And if his arm was hurting him, the thing is, he probably shouldn't have thrown that ball.
All right, there you have it. Mark Daniels from MassLive.com. We appreciate the time, sir. Congratulations on the article.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
There you go.